A Jackson murder suspect on the run for nearly a decade has finally been caught and now behind bars. 48-year-old Calvin Horton is accused of killing a 21-year-old back in 2016. He was in court today, denied bond. 3 News Side's Quentin Smith is here now to give you more information on how JPD made this arrest. Quentin?
That's right, Howard. Investigators say they're relieved to have finally solved this case. And they admit they became emotional, along with the victim's family, once Horton was taken into custody. He remains behind bars at the Hinds County Detention Center in Raymond. This is Horton right here, not long after being denied bond in court today. He's accused of killing 21-year-old Tyshawn Robinson. It happened on Belvedere Drive back in November of 2016. Now, according to investigators, a car was reportedly traveling south of Belvedere Drive when it left the road, hit a tree, and caught fire. When police arrived, they found the car half burned and Robinson on the ground, shot multiple times. This is video from that scene. Investigators say they went back and re-examined the case. They interviewed witnesses again and discovered new evidence that led them to Horton. Police say Horton's capture and no bond sends a strong message that this type of behavior will not be tolerated.
It lets the community know that we have not given up on any cold cases out there. Any homicide that happened and is here, we're going to most definitely open those cases up one by one. And if there are suspects in those cases, we will bring those cases to justice.
Now Horton is being charged with murder, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. At this time, investigators are still trying to determine how Robinson and Horton knew one another. Up next for Horton is his preliminary hearing. Still no word on when that's going to take place. Quentin Smith, 3 on your side.